Let's talk about this mouse plague in Australia. I just found out about this. I was listening to a YouTube video and they were talking about this mouse plague, and I thought, let me look into this because I deal with comments from people from Australia on a somewhat regular basis. So this channel is about feral cats and socializing feral cats and training feral cats, and it follows the story of my cats, which were previously feral cats and are now fabulous house cats. For many years now, longer than I've had this channel, Australia has been killing feral cats. They have a nationwide program to kill feral cats. So I think it is very appropriate that they now have a mouse plague on their hands, because what happens when you kill off your cats? Then your rodent population explodes. It increases greatly because we all know that cats kill rodents. That's what they do. That is one of their purposes on this planet, to kill small rodents and pests. So let's take a look at this article on NBC News on their website. It says it's the worst mice plague I've ever seen. Millions of rodents descend on eastern Australia. They're all around the house. Every time you open a drawer, you're potentially going to find one, a man told NBC News. And then here's a photo here. Look at all of these mice. There's so many mice. It says swarms of mice run around on a farm in Gilgandra, New South Wales, Australia, March 12th, 2021. And let's look at this article. This article is from March 26, 2021 by Nick Baker. Sydney, Australia. After one of its worst wildfire seasons and a global pandemic, Australia is now facing its latest end-of-days challenge, a monumental plague of mice. Millions of rodents are running amok in parts of Australia's eastern states, with residents sharing horror encounters on a daily basis. With an epicenter in rural New South Wales, farmers have uploaded videos to social media of mice blanketing their land, damaging crops, and taking up residents inside homes. So let's take a look at this very disturbing video.
Oh, damn!
Look at all of these mice. It's crazy. This is Guy Roth, who works at a sprawling University of Sydney research farm near the New South Wales town of Narrabri, said mice had overtaken the property. I know we had 2 mice per square meter in our cropping paddocks at the peak. So if I have the math right, it's 20 million mice. That's more mice than the population of most big cities, he says. So he's saying that they had 2 mice per square meter. Roth said at one point he and his family were catching and disposing of around 100 mice each day inside their house and offices. So he was catching 100 mice a day inside his house and inside his offices. They're all around the house. Every time you open a drawer, you're potentially going to find one, he said. You'll be sitting at the desk and a mouse will run across it. He said the mice were eating the cotton crops as well as grain stored in silos. Roth, who has spent his whole life in regional and rural Australia, said this was the worst mice plague I've ever seen. They certainly smell. That's what my memory of this is going to be. The smell, he said. The smell of the dead mice in and around the house and the farm. While the health impact on humans has not been severe, there has been at least one report of the rare mouse-related illness, lymphocytic choriomeningitis. And at least 3 people have been bitten by mice in New South Wales hospitals while they were admitted for non-mice-related issues. So while these people went to the hospital for non-mice-related issues, they were bitten by mice in the hospitals. A spokesperson for the state government health department, NSW Health, said these bites were minor and appropriate treatment has been provided. NSW Health staff are responding with appropriate control measures, the spokesperson said, listing measures including increased baiting and trapping, odor repellents, and blocking access. The spokesperson added, the current mouse infestation across western NSW is a natural occurrence. What they are not mentioning is that the most appropriate control measure is to make sure that there are plenty of cats around, and this would never happen. And if it did happen, it would not happen nearly as severe as this current mouse plague is. Then it says, what's causing the plague? Steve Henry conducts mice research with Australia's National Science Agency, the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization. Henry said the outbreak, which is of the non-native house mouse, is monumental and continues to have severe economic and social effects. Some farmers are giving up on summer crops because the mice have damaged them so severely, so that's essentially a total crop loss, he said. And in some scenarios where farmers have managed to get the crops through to harvest, they've had it rejected because it's full of mouse poo. But he said mice plagues can come around every 5 to 10 years in Australia due to a combination of factors. We've had a run of dry years now, and the drought has essentially broken, so the mice get switched on to that change in environmental conditions and they start to breed, he said. The farmers have had a good crop and that puts a lot of food into the system, so you've got favorable climatic conditions, favorable food in the system, lots of good shelter, lots of moisture. And what he does not mention is a lack of cats, because Australia has been actively killing cats. And he said mice are prolific breeders, as they can start to breed when they are 6 weeks old. And then they can have a litter of 6 to 10 pups every 19 to 21 days after that. Think about that. Mice can start to breed when they are 6 weeks old. And then they can have a litter of 6 to 10 other little mice every 19 to 21 days after that. So that is exponential growth. What do you need to stop that growth? You need cats. Cats will eat the mice before they can start reproducing. That is the problem. But Henry said a mice plague typically ends abruptly with a population crash, although it is difficult to predict when this will occur. So why does a population crash happen? It's going to happen when the mice run out of food, or it's going to happen when mice are killed and trapped. But the best way for it to happen is for it to never happen at all, which is why cats are a natural part of the environment, because they take care of rodent populations. The winter crops. Farmers in plague-hit areas are now looking toward the winter crops, which in this part of the southern hemisphere are typically sown in April and May. The industry group NSW Farmers has grave concerns that some farms will lose all the planted seed to the mice. And here's another video. There's just tons of mice running around. NSW Farmers President James Jackson said there needs to be urgent action from the state government, including emergency permission to use the pesticide zinc phosphide and financial assistance through a small grants program. Mouse control is very costly. The severity of the current plague has resulted in the need for multiple aerial and ground bait applications in cropping regions. Action is needed now, he said. Okay, so this goes to show you how stupid people are, because mouse control is not costly at all when you have cats. Utilize natural mouse control in the form of cats. Cats have been used for rodent control for centuries. They've been used for rodent control in rural areas, on farms, and they've been used for rodent control in urban areas, in stores. You can go into a deli in New York City and you will most likely see a cat. They keep them to keep the mice and the rats out. So why are the people in Australia so ignorant to the use of cats with regards to cheap rodent control? Then it says, according to the group, heavy rainfall over recent days has curbed mice numbers in some areas, but they are still rampant in the central west and northwest of New South Wales. I'm hearing the rain has pushed more of them into houses and vehicles, the group's spokesperson Michael Burt said. For now, Australians like Roth are left hoping the plague comes to a quick end. Everyone's tolerating it, but we've really had enough, he said. So that's a current article from NBC News. Now let's look at this article that's on CNN. This article is from 2019. It's The Case Against Cats, Why Australia Has Declared War on Feral Felines. And what's been going on in Australia with feral cats is absolutely disgusting, but let's read this article. It says they're cute, they're fluffy, and they're public enemy #1 in Australia. Australia is at war with feral cats. By 2020, the government wants to kill 2 million free roaming cats, a large chunk of the total feral cat population, which is estimated to be between 2 and 6 million. So let's think about this. If they have 2 million feral cats and they have 20 million mice, that's only 10 mice per cat. So think about that. If they did not kill 2 million free roaming cats, they would not now have 20 million mice invading their farms. Some areas of Australia have gone even further. In the northeastern state of Queensland, there's even a council offering of $10 bounty per feral cat scalp, a policy People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA, has lambasted as cruel. It's cruel and it's disgusting, and whoever even suggested such a thing really should be in jail. Nor is the problem exclusive to Australia. In neighboring New Zealand, a prominent environmentalist has proposed a cat-free future with both domestic and feral cats either controlled or culled. That person should not be an environmentalist at all. That person, for proposing such a thing, really needs to seek mental help. Then it says, so why do the Antipodes dislike cats so much? So then it goes on to killer cats. The answer is simple. Cats, especially feral ones, are killers. The first cat is thought to have arrived in Australia at some point in the 17th century. Since then, their number has ballooned, with the population today estimated to cover 99.8% of the country. Although feral cats belong to the same species as domestic cats, feral cats live in the wild where they are forced to hunt for survival. Since they were first introduced to European settlers, feral cats have helped drive an estimated 20 mammal species to extinction, Gregory Andrews, National Commissioner of Threatened Species, told the Sydney Morning Herald. According to Andrews, that makes feral cats the single biggest threat to Australia's native species. Now, we have to remember that Mr. Andrews, he's estimating this. These are not real figures. This is his estimation based on his agenda. Then it says, and that's significant in Australia, an island nation that was cut off from the rest of the world for thousands of years. Today, an estimated 80% of Australia's mammals and 45% of its birds are found in the wild nowhere else on Earth. And of course they're going to mention birds because it's always the bird people who hate cats. Bird people usually hate cats, and they're usually out to kill cats. It says, for cats, native species are easy prey. Cats are believed to kill more than 1 million native birds and 1.7 million reptiles across Australia every day. A spokesperson for Australia's Department of the Environment and Energy told CNN, citing scientific research. Notice, this person does not tell you how many rodents they kill. They do not tell you how many mice those cats kill, and they do not tell you how many rats those cats kill. So whoever this spokesperson is really speaking from an agenda and not from a place of truth, because they should be mentioning the mice, the rats, and all the invasive, undesirable rodents, because that is what the cats kill. Some of the other species under threat from cats include the brush-tailed rabbit rat, which the government classifies as vulnerable, and the rat-like golden bandicoot. We are not culling cats for the sake of it. We are not doing so because we hate cats, said Andrews. I'm sorry, Andrews. Yes, you are. We have got to make choices to save animals that we love and who define us as a nation. Well, you just said it. We've got to make choices to save animals that we love. You don't love cats. Unlikely critics, the government, which announced its plan to initiate a cull in 2015, has pledged $5 million to support community groups who can target cats on the front line. But the plan has come under fire, and surprisingly, conservationists are among the critics. Tim Doherty, a conservation ecologist from Deakin University in Australia, agrees that feral cats take a big toll on Australia's native species, but believes the cull is based on shaky science. At the time when the target was set in 2015, we actually didn't know how many feral cats there were in Australia, he said, adding that some estimates at the time put the number at 18 million, which he called a gross overestimate. So here you have a conservation ecologist telling you that they are making these targets based on false numbers and gross in estimates. He says there's not really a reliable way to estimate across an entire continent. And if you're going to set a target, and if you want to be meaningful, you need to be able to measure your progress towards it. Another more pressing issue is that merely killing a cat doesn't necessarily save bird or mammal lives. The cat needs to have been living in an area that has threatened animals, he said. And bounties need to be focused in a certain area. It needs to be concentrated rather than a scattergun approach. While cats are a big problem, the government has focused heavily on them at the cost of other more politically sensitive issues like habitat loss caused by urban expansion, logging, and mining. There's a possibility there that cats are being used as a distraction to some extent. We also need to have a more holistic approach and address all threats to biodiversity. So here we have this conservation ecologist pointing out that people are killing cats when urban expansion, logging, and mining are probably what are really affecting the wildlife much more so than cats. Then it goes into New Zealand, but we're talking about Australia right now and this mouse plague. And the mouse plague is a direct result of what Australia has been doing to their cats. And then here's an article from a website called allthat'sinteresting.com, and it says feral cats have taken over Australia and the government is now fighting back. This is from 2017. And what I find interesting in this article, it's going to tell you. So it says right here, in addition to their presence over nearly the entire land area of the continent, think 1 cat per every 1.5 miles kind of presence. So this article is saying that in Australia, there was 1 cat per every 1.5 miles. Meanwhile, if we go back and we look at the mouse plague that is going on, it says there are 2 mice per square meter. 2 mice per square meter versus 1 cat every 1.5 square miles. Do you see the difference there? Do you see this big discrepancy between the amount of cats and the amount of mice? And if those cats were not killed off, there would not be the amount of mice that there is now. So I just wanted to point this out because I don't know if many people are going to make this connection, but it's definitely a connection that exists. When you kill off the cat population, the rodent population increases exponentially. And the fact that Australia has been killing off feral cats for many years now is one of the reasons why they are seeing the worst mice plague they've ever seen. There's always a cause and there's always an effect. The cause here is killing off cats, and the effect is an explosion in the rodent population. Thank
Thank you for watching this Lucky Ferals video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you'd like me to post more videos, and please make sure to check out these other videos that were selected especially for you.